Hey guys, I'm going to help you with lesson 11 from Module 4's homework. So we're going to start off and we're going to be finding unknown parts just like we did yesterday, but with a lot more moving pieces. So here we're starting off with, we're going to look for angle A, or the degrees of angle A. And we know that it's pretty easy because it gives us the other piece, which is 320. And we know they're going to end up being 360 because that's that whole circle. So we're going to say 360 minus the piece we know, which is 320. And you're going to end up with 40 degrees. It's pretty easy to start off with. Now this is probably the easiest example we'll have, but it's showing you that we need to subtract to find the missing piece. We're going to do the same thing here, except this missing piece that we have is much bigger. So we have 45 and we're looking for the degrees of B. So I'm going to take my 360 and I'm going to subtract the 45 to find the missing piece that I have. And I went ahead and started filling out the equation. 45 plus blank equals 360. So off to the side, I'm going to write 360 minus 45, which is what I have. And when I subtract and regroup, I'm going to end up with 315 degrees, which makes sense because that's a pretty big angle. Okay, now 3 is where they start to get a little bit more complicated. There's a lot more angles involved. This whole thing is 360 degrees. I have two pieces. I have 100 and 115. I'm going to add those to my equation. And I'm missing a piece, which is C. And so in order to find that, I'm going to subtract 115 and 100 from 360. But first I'm going to just add 115 and 100 together to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to get 225, and I'm subtract those from 360 to find a missing piece of 135 degrees. And if I went back and added, if I wanted to check my work, I should add up all three parts and I should get 360. Okay, here again, the whole thing is 360. They all come together at a central point. And again, I have two pieces and I'm looking for the third. So they all add up to be 360. I'm going to put that in my equation. And I'm subtracting 135 and 145 from 360 degrees. So those are the two pieces that I have. So first I'm going to add 135 and 145 together to make it a little bit easier to subtract. Just subtract once. I'm going to get 280, and then I'm subtract that from 360 to figure out what that missing piece is going to be. Oh, got ahead of myself. I was starting to regroup when I didn't need to. Okay, and so I should get 80 degrees. And if I were to add those back up, they should add together to give you 360. Okay, now this is where they get a little crazy, so bear with me. Here, you've got a lot of missing pieces, but you've got a lot of information to go off of. They should all add up to 360, but that doesn't necessarily help you when you have more than one missing piece. So here, you have AB and CD that intersect at O, and you're given two pieces. You're given that one that's 145 and that one that's 35. So here, this is how I'm going to split it. I'm going to look at CD. That's clearly 180 degrees, right? So on this bottom half, if I'm looking for F, 145 plus F is going to give you 180. So I'm going to subtract 145 from 180 to figure out what F has to be. So these problems are best approached by splitting them up. So F has to be 35 degrees. I'm going to check that. Still get 180, so that makes sense. Now if you look at the other half, I could do the same thing again. I could highlight CD and look at it from the top, and I could see, oh, okay, so here's another 180, and this time the piece that I have is 35, so I'm going to subtract that from 180, which we should already know based on what we did, and I'm going to get 145. Now, you might be seeing a pattern here, but if not, we'll talk about it in a little bit. So 145 degrees, which makes sense because 35 plus the 145 will give you 180. So the best thing to do is to break them apart to things you know. If you notice, F matches 35, which is across from it, and E matches 145, which is also across from it. Well, let's see if that pattern works out here again. So on number 6, it's the same thing, but a little bit more complicated because we're only given one number. So I'm going to look here, and I have 55, and I could see, okay, this is too many letters for me, so I'm going to say ST is 180. So I'm going to say 180 minus 55 to figure out what H is. When I do that, I get 125 degrees. And when that happens, I have that piece. Now I can do this again, and I could say QR. Okay, well that's also 180. If I just look at QR where I highlighted in yellow, I know that's 125 now because I just found that, and I could say 180 minus 125 conveniently gives me 55. We should see a pattern happening here that the angles that are across from each other are equal. But let's see if that works out again. So here I'm going to look at ST again, and look, another 180, but I did this one in red for you to see. Okay, well if that's 55, and we know the whole thing's 180, if I subtract 55 from 180, we've already done this, you should get 125 degrees. So you should notice a pattern that the angles that are across from each other and these intersecting lines are equal. Those are both 55 and those are both 125. See the pattern? Okay. On number 7, this is a lot more complicated. There's not really a pattern that you can follow with this. You just got to break it up. It's almost like a puzzle. So if you look at this next one, there's a lot of moving parts. I'm going to start off with my 180 because I know how to do that. So this is going to be 180. I see 46 up on top, and I'm looking for M. So I'm going to subtract 46 from the 180 to get 134. So I've at least solved for one of them. Now if you look on the other side, you're going to see that one of them's labeled for you as 90 degrees with that little square. And so that makes it a little bit easier to solve. But let's look at a different part. I'm going to look, well, there's 90. Let me label that. So we know that K and J, whatever they are going to have to add up to be 90, because that 90 plus that 90 will give you your other straight line. But we don't know what they are yet, so that's a little bit hard to figure out. So we're going to wait on those. Now let's look at WX. Okay, well that's 180. And I have 134 here on M, so I could probably solve for K if I said 180 minus 134. And here I got 46. So I'm going to put 46 in for K. And now that makes it really easy to solve for J, because I told you earlier we figured out that K plus J is going to have to be 90. So I could say 90 minus 46 to get that J, which is that missing piece. And I'll get 44 degrees. Now, the ultimate way to check to see if all of this is correct is you add up all of your angles to make sure you get 360 degrees. So let's make sure everything is correct. I'm going to take my 134, 46, 90, I'm going clockwise round, plus the other 44, plus 46. Okay, having trouble here. Doesn't like it when I write the plus sign. Hold on. Okay, and when I add all those up, 4 plus 6 plus 4 plus 6 is 20. Carry that. I'm going to get 26, so I'm going to put my 6 down here and carry my 2 again. And I'm going to end up with 360, so I added all those correctly. Ta-da!